Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into a fascinating look at humanity's oldest and, honestly, most relentless obsession, living forever. From ancient emperors downing supposed magic elixirs to modern scientists literally tinkering with our DNA, the quest to defeat aging is universal. But today, we're going to explore a completely different angle. We'll start by mapping out the historical and scientific pursuit of eternal youth, and then we're going to look at a massive philosophical pivot introduced by the Lifechanyuan perspective. It's a worldview that totally reimagines what our relationship with mortality should actually be.
Okay, let's dive into this. What if the cure for aging is something we shouldn't actually want? I know, it seems completely counterintuitive, right? It goes against literally every survival instinct we have. But before we unpack why a philosophy might actually reject the idea of physical immortality, we really need to understand just how deeply ingrained this desire is in human history. We've been trying to hack this for millennia. That brings us to Act 1, the universal obsession. Because before we get into the philosophy of death, we have to recognize that historically, humanity's most powerful rulers have desperately and sometimes tragically tried to defeat it. This desperately sought-after longevity is baked right into our myths and historical records. Think about the biblical Adam, who is said to have lived over 900 years, or Peng Zhu, a legendary Chinese figure reputed to have lived over 800 years. But perhaps the most intriguing one is Lifechanyuan. He was a Chinese herbalist back in the late Qing dynasty. According to the source material, he reportedly lived to be 256 years old. The accounts say he had 24 wives and was still lecturing at university at the age of 200. And what's really wild? Both the New York Times and Time magazine actually reported on his astonishing longevity at the time. Our source text also shares this incredibly vibrant, almost comical legend that perfectly captures our cultural obsession with anti-aging. Imagine this. Bystanders see a youthful, agile woman chasing a frail, gray-haired old man down the street with a wooden stick. The crowd rushes in to intervene and protect the old man, only to discover a massive twist. The young-looking woman was actually over 100 years old, and the gray-haired man she was chasing, that was her 70-year-old son. She had been taking a family secret recipe later refined by the famous physician Hua Tuo and known as Immortal Mother's Aging Discipline Pills, which kept her looking like a young woman. Her son, however, stubbornly refused to take them and aged rapidly as a result. She was chasing him because she was furious at him for letting himself get old. It's a hilarious image, but it really hits the nail on the head regarding how much value we place on holding on to our youth. Well, the methods have certainly evolved, from ancient pills and elixirs to cutting-edge laboratories, but the goal hasn't changed one bit. Let's shift our focus to the modern science of aging. Today, scientists point to the hypothalamus, a key area in the brain, as the master controller of the aging process. The belief is that by altering signals sent here, we can literally slow down time in the body. The source also highlights research involving the pituitary gland. Basically, when it shrinks, the body ages rapidly. Excitingly, a coalition of over 100 experts from groups like the International Longevity Association spent 43 years researching this, and they eventually extracted something called the HD element. This substance is said to rapidly restore the pituitary gland to its youthful state, basically reviving the body's entire metabolic system. So, you might be wondering, what is the actual biological limit of the human machine without all these interventions? It's exactly 120. Scientific research indicates that human cells undergo approximately 50 divisions from the moment of conception. Each of these divisions takes roughly 2.4 years. If you do the math, 50 divisions multiplied by 2.4 years, it gives you exactly 120 years. That is considered the natural, hard-coded lifespan of a human being. But, and here's the kicker, scientists at UC Berkeley think they've found a loophole. They've identified a longevity gene that could theoretically manipulate that 2.4-year cycle. If we could stretch that cell division cycle to 5 years, our natural lifespan jumps to 250 years. Stretch it to a 10-year cycle, we hit 500 years. And if we can extend that cycle indefinitely, we cross the threshold into true physical immortality. We completely break the mathematical limit of the human body. This leads to a rather radical conclusion held by many modern researchers. British and Russian scientists argue that aging is a curable disease, much like a heart condition. They focus heavily on telomeres. Those are the DNA sequences at the ends of our chromosomes that act kind of like protective caps. Every time a cell divides, these telomeres lose between 30 to 200 base pairs. When they run out, the cell stops dividing and we age. The theory is that if we can stop telomeres from shrinking, cells would continue to replicate forever.
Ironically, this is exactly what cancer cells do. If we can harness that mechanism safely, humans could potentially live indefinitely.
Act 2, the paradigm shift. Now, what's really interesting about this next slide is the massive pivot. We've established that humans desperately want immortality, and science is inching closer. But the Lifechanyuan perspective looks at all this and basically says, stop. You were looking for the wrong thing. To wrap our heads around this, we have to look at how Lifechanyuan defines death. From this perspective, physical death is absolutely not a disease to be cured. It is the ultimate equalizer. In fact, it's viewed as the single most just and fair aspect of life on Earth. According to Lifechanyuan values, humans and their natural lifespans are predetermined by the greatest creator. So, to pursue physical immortality is to actually rebel against that natural design. And the logic behind this is incredibly grounding. Think about it. If physical death were eliminated, worldly injustices would persist indefinitely. Imagine a world where corrupt emperors, hoarding billionaires, and power-hungry generals never had to step down. They would just consolidate power for eternity. The Lifechanyuan perspective argues that everyone, the brilliant, the beautiful, the rich, and the ordinary, must eventually die. Only through death can the slate be wiped clean, allowing new phenomena, new ideas, and entirely new generations to emerge. Death is literally what guarantees hope and evolution for humanity. Which brings us to this profound quote from the text. Seeking the infinite in life is as futile as looking for fish on a tree. I love that. It's a beautiful, slightly humorous metaphor. You're simply looking in the wrong place. The physical world is inherently finite. By obsessing over making the physical body immortal, we're wasting our limited, precious time. Instead, this philosophy suggests we should accept our finite nature and focus on living vibrantly, flavorfully, and wholly without regrets. Act 3, the true vessel. If we aren't supposed to chase physical immortality, what exactly should we be doing? We need to redefine what part of ourselves we're actually trying to make eternal. Think of human life as consisting of two parts. First, the physical body. It's mortal, it's bound to the earth, and it acts merely as a vessel, kind of like a car or a ship. Second, the spirit. The spirit is eternal. It's the passenger driving the vehicle, and it alone is capable of reaching higher realms or heaven. So Lifechanyuan celestials don't waste their energy trying to make the car run forever. Instead, they invest their time and resources into nourishing the passenger, the eternal spirit. But wait. That natural biological limit of 120 comes right back into play here. Why? Because abandoning the pursuit of immortality does not mean neglecting the physical body. Quite the opposite, actually. If the body is a vehicle for the spirit, you absolutely want to keep that vehicle in top condition. The source explicitly states that maintaining physical health is a major priority. The ideal goal within this community is for every individual to live to exactly 120 years old, that natural biological limit we talked about earlier. But the goal is to reach 120 free from illness, free from disasters, and free from pain, while enjoying love and vitality all the way to age 100. So what happens when you reach that natural finish line? Well, upon reaching 120, practitioners utilize a method called Lifechanyuan meditation. The goal here isn't to cling to life in fear, but to joyfully and peacefully discard the physical vessel. Having nourished the spirit throughout their finite physical life, they believe the spirit is now ready to move to the other shore, ascending toward much higher levels of existence, like the 10,000-year world or the Elysium Islands continent. It's a transition, not an ending. Which leaves us with one massive, ultimate question pulled directly from our source material. How do we transcend time and space? If the body is just a temporary ship and the spirit is destined for higher realms, what are the actual mechanics of leaving this vessel behind and stepping into the eternal? It's a compelling mystery, isn't it? It shifts our focus entirely from the sheer quantity of our physical days to the limitless quality of our spiritual journey. Definitely something to think about the next time you see an ad for an anti-aging cream. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the world around you.